mechanical compression system, refrigeration system. It is composed of 4 units, as I mentioned. We're going to start with the heart of the system, and that is called the compressor. That's number 1. And as I write these, I'm going to write them in the direction that the refrigerant will actually flow in the mechanical compression refrigeration system. So from the compressor, the next stop is to the condenser. The third stop, after passing through the condenser, is going to be to the metering device. And the last stop with the 4 basic components of this system is the evaporator. Those are the 4 components of the mechanical compression refrigeration system. Now I'm going to draw a chart of those and show you how they're connected together. Again, I start with the compressor. And since most air conditioning compressors are in these sealed steel containers called a hermetic compressor, I'm going to draw something that looks like. So this is my compressor. A compressor has a pipe in, called a suction, and a pipe out, called a discharge. So I got an in, and I have an out. A condenser is a heat exchanger. The condenser that I showed you at the very beginning is a heat exchanger that removes heat, that transfers heat from the refrigerant into the air that flows through the fins. So I'm going to show that condenser is going to look like a box, actually like a rectangle. So here's my condenser. Refrigerant goes in, refrigerant goes out. The next place it was going to go, you guessed it, the metering device. The symbol for metering device is a circle with an X. And my pipe goes in, and I have a pipe that goes out. Now the next stop is the evaporator. And remember, I just told you the condenser is a heat exchanger. Well, hang on to your hats. The evaporator is a heat exchanger as well. Now what it's doing, it's using the medium of air. Air is considered in science as a fluid. So it's using that medium of air to absorb the heat from the air, and it gets absorbed into the refrigerant. So it's shown as a box again, Normally it's a typically smaller object than a condenser. And it has refrigerant in, refrigerant out. And this is the evaporator. These are my 4 components of that mechanical refrigeration system joined together with their pipes. Now, here's what we're going to do next. I'm going to keep the ins and outs up there, but I'm also going to now talk about something about the refrigerant. Refrigerant, first off, state of matter, the matter of things. You know, what are we made up of? We're made up of subatomic particles, atomic particles that come together and they form together and it becomes matter, right? And so we always use the example of H2O, water, when we're talking about the state of matter. So this is sort of like your 7th grade science now. So water has 3 states of matter. Water can be a liquid, right? It can be a gas, and it can be a solid, as in ice. And so at 1 standard atmosphere, we know how that water changes state. It changes state from how much heat it loses to how much heat it gains. When we heat water to an intensity of 212 degrees Fahrenheit, 1 standard atmosphere, we know it boils on the east end of Long Island because we're at sea level. And when we, at 1 standard atmosphere, remove the heat from that water and the temperature intensity is 32 degrees Fahrenheit or less, then that water then forms to be ice, right? So the same thing happens in refrigerants and refrigerating systems, is that we're going to take a fluid called refrigerants and we're going to work with 2 states of matter. We're going to work with that refrigerant as a liquid, and we're going to work with that refrigerant as a vapor. And so that's what I'm going to just simply do and end this right here, is to show this refrigerant with the in and the out. Is it a refrigerant or is it a liquid? So let's start with the compressor. The compressor is really interesting because it actually sees the refrigerant as really, well, that's not true. Let me back up. It sees the refrigerant as a gas always. Gas in and gas out. Vapor in, vapor out. So the in here is the refrigerant is in a state of matter of vapor. Vapor or gas. Sometimes we use those terms synonymously. The proper term would be vapor. When it leaves the compressor, it leaves as a vapor. When it enters the condenser, it enters as a vapor. But here we have the word condense, condenser. So when we condense something, we are going to change that state of matter into a liquid. So vapor in, liquid out. We travel to the metering device. It's going to be liquid in, and liquid out. The evaporator, keyword, evaporate. So the evaporator is liquid in and vapor out. So those are the four components of the refrigerating system, air conditioning system. They are compressor, the heart of the system, the condenser, the metering device, and the evaporator. And this is the path that it goes, in this direction. And there's an in and an out. And as it travels and passes through each one of those devices, there's going to be a change in the state of matter. More on this to come.